Welcome everybody back to Let's Play Nier, where we start the DLC questing. And yes, we did already view this scene, but I'm going to go ahead and let it play out this time. Just for those who want to watch it again. Plus there's bonus stuff towards the end of it. So, just remember that.
Whenever I interacted with Kanie, I was reminded about something from my past. Maybe my mind has been confusing her with my sister this whole time. Here we go.
Kanie's dreams, discrimination. The sound of rain filled the village. The steep cliffs that surrounded the area magnified sound, causing even the slightest drizzle to rattle like a thunderstorm. Thin wisps of smoke, that's a very weird word, but whatever, streamed from the huts as the villagers huddled in their homes and waited out the rain. A single child, however, had braved the downpour and was now wandering slowly toward the wooden, hawk-shaped weather vane at the center of town. The wanderer reached the vane, which had existed for as long as any could remember, and stared. Okay. The wanderer stared at it. The child's face was simultaneously delicate and fierce, like a teacup that had survived a shipwreck. Those traits combined with pale white skin to give the face an almost sexless quality. Okay. If the beak turns east, I go home. If it stays west, then The child blinked. Rain slowly dripped down the young one's short hair and began its long descent to the ground. Come on. Come on. The child felt a slight breeze and watched the vein slowly creak to life. Spinning this way and that for a moment, it finally settled with the beak pointing firmly toward the east. East. Really? Before the vein could move again, jagged rock came spinning and tumbling through the air, finally striking home against the child's head. The force of the blow dropped the child to the ground as a hail of stones began to fall all around. Oh no, they found me. A heartbreaking smile crept across the child's face as the stones continued their assault. Through the rain, the sound of multiple footsteps grew louder before a voice rang out. Yoo-hoo, Kanie. The voice belonged to Daimo, worst of all the bullies in the area. As Kanie struggled to stand, a final stone came skittering through the mud and bounced against her foot. Blood oozed from a cut above her eye, blurred her vision, but she could make out the shapes of Daimo and his usual gang of idiots. The boy seemed taken aback for a moment by Kanie's seeming indifference to the blood dripping from her face, but quickly regained his bravado. What's up, freak? You like the rain? You like getting all wet, or did you finally decide to run away from home? Though she knew it was futile, same thing. Kanie turned to leave. Before she could get more than a few steps, the other children scrambled to surround her, cruelty burning in their eyes. Kanie knew those were not the only eyes on her. The tormentor's parents watched from the safety of their homes. She was attuned to the sensation. It was one she had experienced many times before. While the villagers simply turned a blind eye to the actions of their children, many encouraged it openly. In a society ruled by superstition and fear, Kanie was something to be hated and, if possible, destroyed. I didn't say you could leave, freak. Daimo's words chewed at her like a worm through an apple. He can't hurt me. She lied to herself. Be strong, be brave. He can't hurt me, he can't hurt me, he can't hurt me. Oh look, the little freak is gonna cry. What's wrong? Are you sad that everyone hates you and wants you dead? Kanie prayed for the rain to flood down and carry her away from the world that seemed to have no place for her. But if there were gods, they chose to ignore her. As Daimo crept ever closer, the clouds began to thin and the rain slowed. Even the weather hates me. I'm useless, a failure. I wish Daimo's rock had taken my head off. Kanie couldn't meet Daimo's leering gaze. She lowered her eyes and stared at the muddy ground below. The bully moved forward until he was inches away. He could smell the scent of old meat on his breath. Ew, that's disgusting. The boy grabbed Kanie's face with thick fingers and yanked it upward. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it open. You're a freak. No, I'm not. Did you just say no? Daimo grinned evilly. You don't say no to me. No one says no to me. Not even taking his attention from Kanie, he called to his cohorts, "Come on, guys, let's give this freak what she deserves." As soon as Daimo finished, kicks and blows began to rain down upon Kanie. Daimo paused, still grinning as Kanie curled into a ball and tried to make the pain stop. This kid's an asshole. Can I go kill him? Let's see. You don't get it, freak. What you acting like a girl for, huh? Everyone knows what you really are. Kanie ignored the question, choosing instead to stare at the weather vane. It continued to point east, as if supremely confident about the future it had chosen for her. Go home. Yeah, that's a funny joke for someone with dead parents and no home to go to. Freak, chanted the children. Freak, freak, freak. Kanie closed her eyes and listened to the rain, waiting for the pain to start again. As the clutching hands of the village children closed around her, she bent her mind to the sound of rain, letting it become her world entire. The rain fell, but the pain never came. Only when the laughter of her tormentors turned to terrified cries did she dare to open a single blood-caked eye. Kanie was shocked to see Daimo sprawled on the ground, holding his head and screaming in pain. She could see blood welling from spaces between his fat, twisted fingers. Oh my god, he's crying. He's actually crying. Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. When no savior emerged, they began an uneasy shuffle away from Kanie. But the young girl was the least of their concerns. Instead, their attention was rapt on the ancient woman standing a few feet away. After struggling for breath for a moment, she finally spoke in a voice thick with rage. Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my Kanie again, I'll do far worse than throw a rocket. You can count on it. The old woman crouched down and gently touched the hand of Daimo was using to cover the wound. Before he could think to protest, she ground her palm into the wound and twisted back and forth. I would scream ow too, but he deserved it. Leaping to his feet, "Stop it, what are you doing? Quit whining, ain't no one ever died from a scratch. You hit me with a rock, you stupid bitch, a big one. That could have killed me." The woman shrugged. Death is the best cure for stupid. True. Daimo's face twisted with rage at her words, locking his eyes on Kanie. He took a step backward and spat on the ground. Get out, leave this village. No one wants you here, either of you. Seeing the old woman grab another stone, Daimo and his companions turned tail and ran. As they fled, the old woman grabbed her side and barked out a single laugh. Ha! Look at the fat boy go. Guess he's healthy enough to run from a fight. The woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kanie. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it around the young girl's shoulders, then produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting? Okay. At the blood on her forehead. "Oh, Kanie," she said, "why didn't you fight back? You're stronger than that lot." The words of her grandmother stung Kanie, and she turned away. "Don't be nice to me," she said. "I don't deserve it. Nothing matters anymore." Her tears held in check for so long finally began to fall on the muddy ground below. "Everyone hates me. They think I cause bad things to happen. They think I'm a freak. I wish I was dead. As Kane's tears turned to sobs, she felt her grandmother's hands on her shoulders. Despite her advanced age and diminutive size, she was a woman of surprising strength, and Kane found herself unable to turn away. Don't talk like that, Kane. It's... oh, wow. Bleh. I can't speak. It's a river wide and deep that flows between the realms of this world and the next, and it grants no mercy to any that attempt the crossing. You got a duty to fight until your last breath, understand? The old woman tightened her grip and tried to still the tremor in her voice. You know the pain of losing someone close to you, Kane. You know because you survived it. As the words hit home, Kane was struck by the force of her love for the old woman. As a young child, she didn't even know of her grandmother, but when her parents died, the woman quickly accepted her as her own. Grandma, as Kane called her, was cunning, vulgar, and quick to violence, and their first few years together had not been easy. But with each year that passed, Kane and her grandmother had grown closer. However, it was only now, sitting in the mud with tears and blood caking her face, that Kane truly understood the depths of her affection. Here was a woman who had seen hard times, who had seen death, who had fought through all the things and somehow emerged on the other side. If anyone could understand Kane's pain and loneliness, it was her. Do I make you sick, Grandma? Of course not. Don't be an ass. True words, never been spoken. See. Kane drew her grandmother's moth-eaten shawl around her body and shuddered. But my body, it's not normal. If I was normal, then Mom and Dad wouldn't... Hush, interrupted Grandma. I will not hear another word of this nonsense. You're my granddaughter, and I love you. And if folks have a problem with that, they can just go to hell. With that, the old woman reached out and placed a wreath of dried flowers in Kane's hair. The skill it took to bend the flowers without breaking the stems or losing a single petal was remarkable, and the beauty of it made Kane want to cry all over again. Oh my gosh, these are Lunar Tears! Grandma, you made this for me? Lunar Tears were legendary flowers. Most people could live their entire lives without ever seeing one, and yet her grandmother had somehow collected a dozen or more. Kane reached up and touched the wreath as if she couldn't believe it was real. Where did you find these? Oh, you know, just stumbled on them one day while I was out doing the shopping. The old woman turned away as she was explaining, leading Kane to suspect that the search had been much more difficult than she was letting on. Of course, they're incredibly legendary flowers. The pain she took to construct the ornament, let alone track down the flowers used in its construction, made Kane's heart hurt. She reached up and gently adjusted the wreath, admiring the way it felt between her fingers. Didn't quite turn out right, said her grandmother as she squinted at it. These old hands have trouble with delicate work. Kane blushed and turned away. You think I'm pretty? Of course you are. What a fool thing to say. Thank you, Grandma. Her grandma smiled. Good. We're gonna be fine, you and me, she said. As long as we got each other, we'll be just fine. Kane took her grandmother's hand in hers, and the two of them struggled to their feet. As they began the long walk home, Kane gripped the hand with all her might, as if trying to stop smoke from drifting away on the wind. The rain had stopped. Kane stood beneath the weather vane, watching it spin in lazy circles, no longer caring about the direction it faced when it stopped. I don't need to escape. I have a home now. Grandma loves me, and that's enough. Even if it's us against the world. Kane let her gaze drift up past the vane and into the cloudy sky. The last faint hints of a rainbow were slowly fading. As she turned and headed home, the light scattered into a million particles and vanished, seemingly taken away on the breeze. Kane's dreams, daily life. Are you kidding me? How long is this? Holy cow. Alright, we are halfway through an episode and we're still in Text City. Probably because I don't read very fast. Well, I read decently. In the distance, Kanie heard the steady sounds of an axe striking wood. The noise had a purposeful quality to it, as if she was hearing a master woodsman go about his work. The firewood being produced, however, was far from a work of art. Could be pieces of every shape and size were being flung around a barren yard with wild abandon. Anyone trying to stack such wood would probably die of frustration before the job was through. Stupid piece of shit axe. Kanie's grandmother flailed away with the axe, filling the air with both splinters of wood and words that would make the most hardened sailor blush. Grandma, called Kanie. What? Yelled the old woman, taking her eyes off the wood for a moment. Oh, it's you, Kanie. Don't get too close, or I might take your goddamn foot by mistake. She brought the axe down on a piece of wood, sending the chips flying in every direction. One spun past Kanie close enough for her to hear the whistle, at which point she decided to step back. Once she scuttled to a safe distance, she cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, Grandma, do you need help? I can get you water or lunch or a new axe or something. The axe, poised to strike another wobbly blow, paused in midair. The old woman considered her granddaughter's offer for a moment and then smiled. Tell you what, since I'm doing such a piss-poor job of chopping, why don't you come here and take over so I can go get the water? Shades have been restless lately, you know. I don't want you running into one of them bastards. Relinquishing the axe, her grandmother picked up a long pole with wooden buckets on either end. Gathering water was by far the more difficult of the two jobs, but Kanie knew better than to complain. Once Grandma's mind was set, there was no changing it. Kanie did her best to help with chores, but Grandma took every task that required travel to the village. Though she had a long list of plausible excuses, Kanie knew the real reason. She didn't want her granddaughter to be taunted and harassed by the villagers. Once Kanie moved in, Grandma decided to take up residence a good distance from the area. Out of sight, out of mind seemed to be the best policy when it came to the villagers and her granddaughter. And rare were the days when any but the two of them could be found on the rocky arc of land they called home. Kanie enjoyed the solitude, but harbored a secret resentment that her grandmother was forced to spend her golden years in such a place. After watching her grandmother leave, Kanie turned her attention to the task at hand. She had never chopped wood before in her life, and soon discovered why the old woman hated the chore. Swing after swing, the axe produced only a tiny crack in the wood, and when she finally managed to connect it with a solid strike, the tool embedded itself in the log and refused to budge. Frustrated, Kanie swung the axe around her head and threw it, log and all, across the yard. Damn it, ah, crap. She suddenly understood the joy her grandmother felt in a good cuss. Happier now, she picked up the axe and forced it from the wood and resumed chopping. She had a natural skill with a blade, but the task was challenging, and blisters soon began to form on her small pink hands. This is tough, and my logs are all weird sizes. See. Spitting on her palms and ignoring the pain, Kanie redoubled her efforts. Just as she was developing a rhythm, Grandma returned from the village. Setting down her buckets with a small sigh, she took one of the logs and coughed out a wheezy laugh. Pretty clumsy, girl. You better practice if you... Her grandmother suddenly collapsed to her knees, causing one of the buckets to wobble precariously. Eyes wide, Kanie dropped the axe and ran to her grandmother's side. Screaming, Grandma, the old woman shook her head and pointed a trembling finger at the bucket. Get the bucket! Can't let it spill! Kanie steadied the bucket with a foot as she knelt by her grandmother. A small bit of water sloshed over the side and made a new home in the hem of her dress, but Kanie didn't notice. Grandma, what's happening? Crazed with panic, she grabbed her grandmother by the shoulders and shook. After a moment, the woman lifted her arms and batted Kanie away. Stop that just now, she cried, breathing heavily. It ain't like I'm dying, just tired from the trip, that is all. If I knew it was going to be wall of text, I would have thought differently. Kanie desperately wanted to believe her, but one look at the old woman's shaking hands and worn face told her more than words ever could. Her grandmother had lived a long, hard life, and it seemed the bill was coming due. The time when her grandmother watched over Kanie was ending sooner than either of them had feared. The positions would be reversed. The next morning, Kanie came to her side of the side of her grandmother's bed and took her wrinkled hand. "Grandma, you're sick and you need medicine. I'm going to the village." The old woman shook her head and tried to rise, but Kanie gently pushed her down. "It's all right," she said. "I'll be fine." Her grandmother fixed her with a gaze that could melt steel. After what seemed an eternity, she finally lowered her eyes and sighed. "I don't like it, goddammit. But I guess I should quit being so stubborn and let you grow up." The old woman watched as Kanie strapped on her boots and made her way down the road to the village. Hours later, as an unseen sun made its way across a dark and rainy sky, she was still watching. Kanie moved at a brisk pace, checking her pockets every few minutes to make sure the money her grandmother gave her was still there. Every noise caused her to spin on her heels, making sure she wasn't being stalked by a shade, or worse, Daimo and his gang. But she encountered neither tormentors nor shades, and Kanie finally found herself at the entrance to the village. A few adults the few adults she could see glanced sideways at her, then muttered to each other, raised hands before silking away into the shadows. Her heart racing, Kanie took a series of rapid, shallow breaths and tried to calm herself. "I have to prove myself. I have to help Grandma. I have to be strong." She chanted those words to herself over and over as she slowly made her way. Finally, her eyes settled on a rotund? I don't know. I was going to say rotunda, but it's not a rotunda, and I don't even know what the rotunda is. And a rotund older woman who was angrily waving her arms in the air and telling anyone who would listen exactly what she thought of Kanie's presence. "Hey, lady," said Kanie with such bravado she did not feel. "Where's the apothecary?" The woman's flabby cheeks shook in bewildered anger. "How dare this thing speak to me?" they seemed to say. But Kanie saw her eyes held a different emotion, fear. "Yeah, we're both scared, lady. Trust me on this one." "Which way?" Kanie repeated. The woman pointed at a small building to the right before hitching up her dress and stumbling off in the other direction. Kanie cringed, expecting a stone to come flying from the assembled crowd, but none came. Her mind was filled with a strange sense of pride as she made her way to the apothecary, but the new emotion had little time to take root, for as soon as she opened the door, she noticed a familiar customer at the counter. It was Daimo. He had clearly been sent here on some kind of family errand, because his gang of followers was nowhere to be found. "Oh my god," he sputtered. "Oh my go. Oh my go," he sputtered. "What are you doing here, freak?" The insult was delivered with force, and Kanie happily ignored it, stretching on tiptoes to see over the counter. She asked the shopkeep for the medication. "Ha!" barked Daimo. "The old bitch finally keel over. Go to hell, Daimo." The boy's eyes grew so wide they seemed ready to fall out of his head, but before he could let fly a comeback, or worse, a punch, the apothecary told him to knock it off before he kicked them out of the store. Daimo slunk out of the shop, cursing Kanie under his breath. Once he was gone, she allowed herself to breathe once more, taking a brief tour of the shop while the owner prepared her medication. Countless tiny bottles filled the cramped store, each with a label written in some indecipherable language. An ocean of aromas assaulted her nose, creating a scent that was exotic but not altogether unpleasant. Seeing such a variety of supplies gave Kanie a sense of peace. Surely, in a world so vast, there would be a place that she could call home. On the far wall, behind the counter, rested a portrait of a stunning young girl. Freaking hell. The picture had once contained bright, vibrant colors, but time had worked its magic and they were beginning to fade. The beauty of the work, however, remained undiminished. "You like that picture?" Kanie turned to find the apothecary with a small vial of medicine in his hands. His eyes were gentle but sad, and they seemed to stare through her and into nothing as he spoke. That's my daughter. I sketched it when she was just a little girl. She's been dead a long time now. Kanie didn't know how to respond. She just stared at the portrait and tried to come up with the right words. Pictures are wonderful things, continued the shopkeeper. They let the one closest to you live on forever. He shook his head slightly, then looked down at Kanie and smiled, handing her the medicine, and reached into his sizable green apron and produced a handful of old wax crayons. You should have these. There's no one left that I wish to draw. Kanie took an instinctive step back, causing the shopkeep's face to darken. Yes, I've heard the rumors about you, he said. It's a small village, and word travels quickly. Between you and me, I'm not sure which of them to believe, but I also don't think they matter much. I knew your grandmother, Kali, and I think the way she was driven out of this town is just deplorable. Grandma's name is Kali? Thought Kanie suddenly. She was still mulling this new fact over in her mind as she reached out and gently took the crayons from the apothecary's hands. Your grandmother is an old friend of mine, he said as Kanie scooted away yet again, and I owe her much. I am willing to wager that she would like it if you drew a picture of her. Yes, I think she would like that very much. Kanie murmured a quiet agreement. But inside her heart was bursting. Never before had a villager treated her with anything but complete contempt. It was a tiny, almost imperceivable step, but it was a step nonetheless, and with enough tiny steps, she might one day discover the rest of the world. We're almost at the end of the video. It's almost been half an hour of text. When Kanie returned home, she found her grandmother asleep in her bed. Her feet were blackened and raw, even bleeding in a bit of places, leading Kanie to think that she had been pacing around the room until exhaustion finally caught up with her. She placed some medicine by her grandmother's pillow and turned to leave, but found the old woman's hand clasped around her arm. Back already, are you? She asked her grandmother with a yawn. Come here, let me have a look at you. Grandma sat up and examined Kanie's head from head to toe. Finally satisfied that nothing terrible had befallen her grandchild, she leaned back and allowed herself to relax. Well, how was it? Did those bastards give you any trouble? It was kind of fun, said Kanie with a small smile. No, seriously, it was. It was fun, was it? Her grandmother in a voice which implied such blah blah. Screw it! I've been reading so long, it's just driving me mad. So anytime you need me to run an errand, just let me know. As she spoke, Kanie removed the crayons from her pocket. After a brief explanation of their source, she informed her grandmother that she was going to sketch her a portrait. A portrait of me? Ridiculous. No one wants to stare at a wrinkled old crone. It'll make you live forever. Horse manure, said her grandmother, throwing back the sheet from her bed. Living forever would just piss me off. Now put those crayons away and help with dinner. But Kanie would not relent, and in the end, Grandma found herself leaning against the wall of their house as if posing for a master artist. Kanie took up the crayons and eyed her subject carefully. Just as her grandmother was about to nod off, Kanie finished the work. After staring at it for a bit, she released it from her grip and let it slowly drift to the floor. It's terrible. It doesn't look like you at all. I'm sorry, Grandma. I thought these crayons would, make drawings easy or something. The old woman's eyes narrowed at her granddaughter's disappointment. Let me be the judge of that, she said, ignoring the pain in her back and reaching for the paper. The sketch could have been a person's face. It also could have been a boulder, a lump of clay, or an incredibly misshapen loaf of bread, all rendered in a chaotic array of colors. The old woman stared at the picture for a long time, then slowly wheezed out a laugh. Oh, Kanie, she said between laughter, you truly are my blood. You're as clumsy as me, and I love it. But, hush, I won't hear any more bull about how ugly you think it is. It came from the heart, and I'll treasure it always. True to her word, the old woman gave the picture a place of honor above the kitchen table. In the days that followed, Kanie would often catch her staring at the portrait with a strange smile on her face, an act she interpreted as silent, mocking laughter. A week later, Kanie could stand it no more and asked her grandmother to take the artwork down. "Posh," said the old woman. "I'll take this down when they roll me in my shroud." She pondered this for a bit, then turned to Kanie and dropped to one knee. "Listen to me, girl. Seeing this picture makes me happy, in a way I've never felt before. And it makes me want to go on so that someday you can feel the same happiness." It was a moment that burned itself into Kanie's memory, a perfect blend of pride and love and joy that came together to form a lifelong remembrance. She swore to never forget this moment, to never forget the old woman who had made her place in the world possible. Time moves on, people and memories come in and out of a life like ghosts passing through a hall. But this moment will be different. Kanie swore because I still remember it forever. Because I will remember it forever. Forever. Kanie's separation. More text. I'm going to end it here. We will pick up the next long bit of text in the next episode. So I want to thank you all for listening to me read for 31 minutes. And I will see you all in the next episode.